So you probably clicked on this video because you want to grow. You're an architect or an engineer and you're looking to transition into bigger roles, because you know you can't be a Revit modeler forever and do this for the rest of your life, right? You want to either become a senior project manager, a BIM coordinator, a senior architect, a senior engineer, or you have one of those big aspirations. And these people that I just mentioned, right, they're actually getting paid a lot of money. So let me just show you some examples of salaries that I found. This is in the US market, right? So you can extrapolate this to whatever country you live in, but just to show you the potential that a senior project manager makes, 116 base salary on average. You see some more down here, you know, 150 to $200,000 at Jacobs. If you want to be a BIM manager, the average is around 104,000 US dollars, right? People from Nevada making 141K, New Jersey 140K, Pennsylvania 130K per year. And then if you want to be an architectural project manager, you're looking at around 90K per year. So you have on the higher range 130K and on the lower range 64, 70K. But if you have a look at these three types of jobs, right? These three are sort of like the aspirational goals that we can get to: a BIM manager, a project manager, or an architectural sort of senior architect. These three jobs require a certain skill set, and I'm about to break down that skill set and show you the easiest path to transition from Revit modeler to one of these three, right? And it's actually easier than you think. So learning BIM coordination is actually the best path to grow as a Revit modeler, as an architect, as an engineer that's doing Revit modeling. So how do we put ourselves in the right path to eventually get to these positions? Because we talked about the positions that we want to be in. Now we have to ask ourselves, how do we position ourselves so we actually start growing in that trajectory? Because I know engineers and architects that have been doing the same thing for 5 to 10 years and they're still Revit modelers, and they haven't found sort of the trick to moving onto like the bigger opportunities, and they're sort of stuck and plateaued at this level. So if you wait for the opportunity to arise naturally as your career continues, you're actually playing against chance. You need to be strategic with the time you spend and what you spend it on, especially after a year or two in your job. So my opinion is that after a year or two, you actually learn most of what you need to learn as a Revit modeler, using Revit on a day-to-day basis. After that, you should start to transition into Revit, like BIM coordination, BIM management sort of roles. And if you're 10 years into your career, at least 5+ years into your career, and you are not a BIM coordinator or a BIM manager, you have to start to sort of shift, and it's not too hard, but you have to start to shift into that BIM management, BIM coordination space, right? Don't fall into the trap of doing the same thing over and over again in your career, even if it's something that's complex and cool for other people. So think of it like Revit modeling. Revit modeling at the start of your career, when you got that job initially, you were like, this is a pretty cool job, right? I'm going to learn a lot of things. As I start to model, you probably learned so many things within the first 6 to 12 months about modeling, about working with other people, about sort of how the slabs are going to be, how the ceilings, how high they have to be, regulations about architecture, all these different things you probably learned really quickly within the first 3, 4, 5 months. But then if you continue to do that, after 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, now at this point, you're getting to that point of diminishing returns where you're not actually getting more from your position. You're not learning from your position. You are doing your position for the company. Okay, so that's the key difference that I'm trying to shift here. You have to be learning from your position rather than just doing your position or like doing your task, right? And the people that learn from their position constantly and are constantly moving and evolving into positions where they are more learning from, like, the job which you get should develop you more than you actually help the company. And that is the key to a really thriving career. And if you can continue to put yourself on those types of trajectories over and over again, then you start to grow really quickly, right? So if you are watching this video and you're already like 5 years into your career and you're a BIM modeler who does nothing more than just Revit on a day-to-day basis with no coordination, then this is a sign for you to shift into BIM coordination. I'll show you how to do it, right? But you might be a bit nervous about this shift, but it's actually a very easy shift. And the reason for this is you're actually already experienced with Revit and you're still considered a modeler. So you actually have the easiest part down, and all you have to do is just learn the coordination skill set, put that on your resume, do like a simulated coordination, and you can put it on your resume, and you have the experience so you can start to shift into management, into coordination. It's not hard. You're in the best position if you are 5 years plus. But if you are 5 years plus, it's sort of like you've been in there for too long. But it's very easy to shift, right? I've actually made a video about how to shift into BIM coordination and how I did it within 6 months. So I've actually linked it somewhere below if you want to go and check that out. It's a really good video. So we'll talk about now, why is moving into BIM coordination the key to unlocking the careers I mentioned at the start of the videos, right? So give me a second. At the start of the video, I talked about 3 different career paths, right? BIM management. I also talked about project management, and I talked about senior architectural, senior engineering design person. These 3 roles, the key to getting into any one of these is actually BIM coordination, because you start off working as a Revit person, and then you get some experience, because that's the most basic tool that you can do as a graduate. When you transition over to BIM coordination, now everything is going to open up, because you're going to be put in a position where you can actually do any one of these 3 skills. And I'll talk about this with this simple concept called leverage, right? The simple answer is increasing leverage. Just because you work today on a job for 8 hours, it doesn't actually mean that you are on an optimal path for your career. It's really important that you find out if you're on the optimal path for career growth, right? Someone can work on something for 8 hours and develop their career way more than someone that's just based on the task which they work on. So I'll give you a simple example. Let's say you just make a door schedule for 5 years of your career. So the first 5 years I told you, you have to make door schedules. Every single time we have a new project, you're the door schedule guy. How good would you get at making door schedules? Like, you'd be so good by the end of it. You'd probably be the best door scheduling making person in the whole world. Like, it wouldn't be hard after 5 years of doing that every single day, right? So you're better than me at door schedules. But let's just say, okay, let's compare that to me working as a Revit modeler, hands-on with the 3D model. Let's say I did that for 6 months. Who do you think is going to learn more skills, right? You might be better at door schedules than me, but I know enough to get a door schedule done. I know enough to get modeling done. I know enough to get like the architectural basics done. I know enough to learn some soft skills and actually learn how to communicate with other people. The amount of skills which I learned from being a modeler for 6 months is more than the amount of skills you will learn doing door schedules for 5 years. So what's the difference between 6 months and 5 years? You're doing 10 times the amount of work, right? Doing door schedules, and you would have spent the same time as me, but you will have less leverage in your career than I do. And this is, I'm making this an extreme example just so you understand the concept of leverage, because it doesn't make sense for someone to do door schedules. It's never happened, right? For the first 5 years. But hopefully you understand what I mean when I say leverage. It's, you might be working the same amount as me, or you might be even working more, or 10 times the amount as me. But it doesn't matter, because if I do the thing and if I'm engaged on a task which increases the exposure that I have, the experiences that I have in order to learn things, if I can put myself in the right opportunities to learn more and more things, then I get ahead in my career and you stay stagnant. That is the difference, right? So it would make sense why I would learn more in this case, right? And again, this is called leverage. And I have this sort of diagram here to explain what it means, right? You want to stack your skills in the favor where you can, you know, when you're replacing your car tire, you put your jack there and you pump that jack and then the car lifts. Why is that? It's because you have leverage. You have a tool with a fulcrum that gives you leverage to lift the car with your strength. Okay, so that's similar concept with your career as you're trying to increase the amount of skills you have. Every single time you learn a new skill, it increases your leverage. It increases the distance to the fulcrum. And what that does is you can lift heavier loads with a smaller effort later on in your career just because you know the skills. You're multidisciplinary, okay? And let's think about this from a company's perspective. So I want you to put your company hat on and say that you ran a huge company, right? Would you rather hire a guy who is the best in the world at one thing? Like, would you hire the best door scheduler? Or would you hire a guy that knows 4 things, but at only 80% proficiency? I'd rather hire the guy that knows 4 things. with 80% proficiency. Because I'm going to think, this guy can get the job done, right? He can do a door schedule. I might have to review it once and give it back to him, but he can actually get it done. But then he also knows how to do modeling. He also knows the architectural basics. He also knows how to coordinate. He also, like, there's multiple things that he knows extra that's going to help my company later on down the track. So I'm going to hire the guy that knows more skills rather than the guy that is the master of door schedules in the whole world, right? So just because you get good, and like, we'll expand this to modeling and coordination. Just because you know modeling, let's say that a guy knows coordination, right? He knows your skill set plus coordination. Now company is going to be like, okay, we're going to expand this company later on. We actually might need some coordinators later on. Let's hire this guy because he knows modeling. He might not even be as good as the other guy, have less experience in modeling, but at least he knows coordination. So the coordination skill set increases his leverage, right? The funny thing is, this effort, this leverage doesn't increase with how good you get at a skill. Okay, you can get good at a skill quickly, but to become a master at the skill doesn't increase your leverage. Just because you've done 100 projects and I've done 50 projects doesn't mean that your leverage increases with modeling. But if I've done 10 projects and then I have a bunch of BIM coordinator skill sets that you don't have, then this increases my leverage. Okay, so hopefully you understand what I'm saying here. So we want to find ways to increase our leverage when we are working, right? We always need to keep an eye on what we do on a day-to-day basis, and we need to review every 3 to 4 months to see if we've fallen into stagnation. So what I would do is every 3 or 4 months, I would check this, see, am I learning more from my work than I'm giving work, right? And work should be a means of self-development. I should be learning more skills and more things from work that make me a better person and actually make me grow. And if this is the case, it means that I'm on the correct path. And a lot of people, after like 6 to 12 months, they learn the skills of the job and they're like, okay, good. Now I've settled into my job. And now it's like, now they think that's when like their life starts, because now they're like settled in, they get into a routine, and then that's good. But the thing is, all you've done is you've finished learning, right? The job is not meant to be, in order for you to grow, the job is meant to be hard every single step of your life, because you're meant to learn skills over and over again, get better, and then stack them on top of each other and continue growing. So you should be uncomfortable every 3 to 4 months learning a new skill and trying to sort of figure out a new skill that you didn't know before. So always ask yourself, what is the next set of skills you can add, and then work on adding them to your skill set. So this way you can increase your leverage. The goal is to become the largest possible spanner, right? So like when you start off, you might only know Revit modeling. Then you might know how to set up a project on the construction cloud. Then you might know how to run a clash detection. Over time, you become a really big spanner because you know how to do all of that stuff. Plus you're an expert architect, so you know how to do all the architectural like rules and regulations. And then, so like you know the rules and regulations, you know how to coordinate MEP, you know how to do Revit, like you know everything. So think about it like this. This guy, if you have like a nut or a bolt that you want to open, this spanner works on the smallest bolts and the biggest bolts and the hardest bolts and the loosest bolts. But then this spanner is not going to work in every single one. You need a specific use case for that. So if a company is going to hire someone, they're going to hire this. What would you rather have? Would you rather have the smallest spanner or like the mid-size spanner or the largest spanner? Like you'd probably opt for something larger because it has higher leverage. It has a longer thing for you to hold. You can hold it at the end. You have more leverage. You can screw it tighter. You can pull it harder. So like, and it's not going to break. And like the thing is, this can do things which are harder, like higher up level. And then this spanner can also do things which are at lower level. So it's like, it's fully multidisciplinary and it has so many different skills. It can work at the high levels, it can work at the low levels. Like it's going to be able to help a company no matter what the company's issue is, right? So, and then that's what we're trying to do with our career as well. We're trying to become the big spanner. And if you think about it, becoming the big spanner is not a matter of time. Becoming the big spanner is a matter of skill. So all you have to do is learn the skills. And as you learn the skills, you become the big spanner. And then it doesn't matter because over time, now you're the big spanner. Now you can start to work in your company and take some work off your manager's plate and actually start to do coordination stuff. Or you can start to look for another job that gives you coordination stuff. You can start to evolve and grow, right? So you never know if someone younger is going to overtake you, right? So someone younger might have the skills of the large spanner, and that's how they actually overtake you. You might be somewhere here where you like stagnated, you're doing Revit modeling every single day, and then a younger person is just going to be like, okay, I know how to do Revit, let me learn how to do BIM coordination stuff. Okay, and so now this guy overtakes you and is on the way to project management. And so the younger guy becomes your boss, and you're like, why? It doesn't make any sense. But then the reason is because they learned the skill, and like they figured out what is the most leverageable skill, which is BIM coordination, right? So someone younger might have the skills of a large spanner, so they can be dynamic and join companies and work on the small spanner tasks as well as the large spanner tasks, right? So this is how they win. So this is how you're going to win as well. How does this tie into BIM coordination? Okay, so think about what the big spanner's skill set is. Your current boss or his boss will know a whole heap of things that make them valuable to the company, right? This is called multidisciplinary thinking. They're able to pull on a wide variety of experiences in order to answer questions. So how do we develop multidisciplinary thinking as quickly as possible? So it's actually not a function of time, like I said, it's a function of exposure. You need to develop the skills. And as you develop the skills, then you get put into positions where you can actually refine those skills over and over again. Okay, so a lot of people think that as you get older, you get more experienced and then you grow in your career. But the thing is, that is correct. But the force multiplier is, that's like saying this, right? It's like saying a tree's gonna grow. If you don't give it enough water and you don't give it enough sunlight, just slightly, the tree is going to grow. It is going to grow, but it's going to be like very slow growth. Now, if you put a tree in a nice place, give it good water, give it good sunlight, control the humidity, put some manure in it, and it's going to grow really, really well. Faster, probably 10 times quicker than the tree that's suffocating with a bit of water and having a bit of sun, right? There's a night and day difference, and this is very clear. So you need to have the correct skills in order to grow, right? And so it's not a function of time, it's a function of exposure. So like you need to be put into positions where you can actually refine the skills. And what are these skills, okay? How do we actually acquire them? Well, let's break it down for architects. These are the things that you would need to be good at in order to get to one of the three career paths that I talked about. BIM manager, senior architect, project manager. How do you get to those three? You become good at these 5 things, right? Understand Revit. You already understand Revit, that's good. Understand the BIM processes, right? Understand how Revit integrates with the cloud, how to do, how everyone is collaborating, all that stuff, okay? Understand how to deal and coordinate with MEP engineers, right? Because architects need to coordinate with MEP engineers, maybe civil, structural engineers, mechanical, electrical, plumbing guys, right? And they need to be able to lower their ceiling heights, increase their ceiling heights, change the facade, be able to understand all the basics of everything in order to actually start to coordinate properly. And this is multidisciplinary thinking. So like your boss, your manager, and their boss, their manager knows how to think not only in terms of architectural, but like MEP engineering stuff, because they know how to link them together and how to ask questions properly, okay? I'll give you an example. 2 days ago, one of the architects that's working on a project that I'm working on told me that there is an exhaust duct above so there's a place where they serve the coffee, and people walk outside the building and stand here in order to get the coffee, right? It's like an open space. And the architect said, there's an exhaust duct above there. There's going to be like exhaust coming out of here. Can we relocate that and switch that with the other duct over here, right? Just in order to think like that and come up with solutions, thinking that, okay, you need to know what an exhaust duct is. You need to know what an outside air duct is. You need to know, like, is it possible to even flip those things? Why it's going to affect the people? Why it's going to affect the people that are drinking coffee here? Like, how's it going to feel? Like, you need to develop multidisciplinary thinking in order to take on a whole project holistically by yourself, right? Understanding architectural theory, right? You can understand that, but then through uni you understand that, but then over time you get better and better and your skills get refined as you work on more projects. So you understand the standards more, okay? Understand how to communicate effectively with external stakeholders. So you might know how to communicate within the team internally, but you're not talking too much externally. You're not talking to the builder. You're not talking to the client. You're not talking to the surveyor, like the civil engineer, the MEP engineers. You need to be able to communicate with all these different people and come to solutions. And so The thing is, as a Revit modeler, this is the only thing you're going to learn. You're going to understand Revit, and you might learn communication within the company. But how are you ever going to learn the BIM processes? How are you ever going to understand how to deal with MEP engineers? How are you ever going to understand architectural theory to a very high level and how that coordinates with other services? And how are you ever going to understand how to communicate effectively with external stakeholders? Because you're not given the opportunity, right? So skills 2 to 4, I would say like this architectural theory you might learn as a MEP, as a Revit modeler, but 2, 3, and 5, which is critical to your growth as a architect or an engineer, you will never actually learn these things as a Revit modeler. So hopefully you're starting to see it. Let me actually make these orange so you understand. These things you are not going to learn because you're not given the opportunity to learn. And the reason you're not given the opportunity to learn is because you don't know them. So the first step is you learn these things. If you learn these things, right, understand the BIM processes, then you're going to be given opportunities within your company to start to take on projects, starting to do coordination, right? Then you'll understand how to deal with MEP engineers, how to effectively communicate with its stakeholders, and understand the whole BIM process and do clash detection, model coordination. And then this way, you get into positions where you're no longer just modeling. Someone is not coming to tell you, hey, can you lower the ceiling by 300 mils because we had a meeting and that's what we decided. You actually get to go into the meeting and decide that. You actually get to run the clash detection and see in the 3D model, okay, what's happening with the HVAC stuff? What's happening with the electrical stuff? Do we need to lower the ceiling? Like, you get to make those decisions and you get to do the coordination. So you're developing your communication with other people, you're coming up with solutions, you're learning multidisciplinary thinking, you're put in the position to learn the things over time. So over the span of a few months, a few years, once you do 5 to 10 projects, you're an expert at this and you're essentially a manager, right? You're a manager, you're a director, you're the CEO. You can get to those high level opportunities when you start to put yourself into a position where you're learning, like, you have a wide exposure to different skill sets that you can learn. And the only way you're going to do that is through BIM coordination, not through Revit modeling. So, you'll no longer be a draftsperson or a modeler or a technician, but rather a coordinator or a manager, okay? So a coordinator or a manager is going to learn this, skills 2 to 5. So our goal is to learn skills 2 to 5. Once you become a coordinator, have a coordinator multiple projects, you have now developed all the skills you need to transition into management of any kind. So these 5 things, which are your current bottlenecks, as a Revit modeler, you'll only know this and you'll only know this. But as a BIM coordinator, you will be in positions where you can learn this, you can learn this, and you can learn this. And then it's only a matter of time before you can then start to do a BIM manager role, right? You can start to do a senior project manager role, or an architectural project manager, or a senior architect. You can be one of those things, and a very effective one, because you have multidisciplinary thinking, because then you're the go-to person, because you've had so much experience working with different projects, because you're the one that handles the project. And the only way for you to handle the project is by becoming a BIM coordinator, okay? So no matter what you want to do, let's just say that you want to start your own architectural firm later on. Let's just say you want to do freelancing later on. Let's just say you want to become a BIM manager as a BIM consultant later on. Everything you need to do as a high-level person in your career comes from this one thing of BIM coordination. You need to learn this and transition into this and learn the skills so that you can be put into positions where you learn these things and start to take on your whole own projects by yourself, right? And it's not actually a function of time, it's a function of skill. So if you want to learn these things, click that link below and move on to my next video, which is about how I became a BIM coordinator within 6 months, and I'll explain step by step how you can do the exact same thing, right? I'll see you guys in the next video.